Perfect.
And then share the screen. Yep. There we go.
Awesome. That's perfect. And just how would you
Tights would be closest to the real thing.
Okay.
But I will respond to these and whatever people in different countries come up with.
No worries. Okay. What would you like for title? Or
sorry, the quality of your sound is not perfect. So sometimes you just.
Oh, sorry about that. What would you like? Your title? As in like Mr. or.
Yeah, because I'm not a practicing academic, so
okay.
Mr. would be fine. Or just Guido. I mean, Mr. that was my father, but he's been dead for a while.
Understood. Alrighty. In that case, looks like everything's good to go.
Yeah. Just let me check one more thing. That's whether I can easily move to the live demo. Yeah. Okay. That seems to work. So.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Alrighty. We have a little under 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Already. 30 seconds.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to Nodes 2023. It's a pleasure to have you here in this session. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Digitized, in our session Solving Historical Research with NeoDash. Over to you, Mr. Thijs.
Okay, thank you, Hiram. Really delighted to be here. Hello, everybody, wherever you are in the world. And I'm very happy to have this opportunity to tell you part of my life. I'm not a computer person. I'm not an engineer, not a scientist. By formation, I'm a theoretical linguist. And I've had a long career in marketing and other areas in which people and information need to come together. And that will show probably sometime during this presentation. So I was intrigued at a certain moment by this wonderful thing called the semantic web, of which a lot of people are dreaming, where all the information in the world is connected to all the information in the world. And especially scientists seem to be very keen on seeing that moment where they can find all the information they need in their research anywhere on the net. So I was looking into that, and I was wondering how many scientists are there basically. And I have this very keen and intelligent research assistant called ChatGPT, and he told me, well, there's millions of scientists. And they're, of course, all dreaming of this fantastic ecosystem of databases and information resources all linked together. But when you look at the real truth, the picture is completely different. So I'm not going to focus on sciences or scientists in general. I'm focusing much more on the humanities, which is the area I know most. Within that, on history, and then in particular book history, and I'll come back to that in a second to explain to you why that is. So is there an ecosystem for the book historians? And the answer is, well, book history seems to be at the early start of the famous hockey stick growth of information. Where in the beginning you do a number of things, and then all of a sudden it takes off and it skyrockets in great heights. And that moment is where the focus goes from data to processes. And book history, and I think most of the sciences are still at the first stage. And that coincides with two different words associated with that. There's a difference between digitizing, which is basically creating digital copies of all kinds of data, and digitalization, where you will start wondering, what can we do with all these data? How can we facilitate processes? And of course, we've seen that, for instance, in logistics, which is a perfect example. In the 1980s, everybody was putting their inventory online in Excel spreadsheets, etc. In the 90s, something developed called enterprise resource planning, where you would hook up information from different areas within the company to predict different manufacturing and logistic needs. And it developed early this century into supply chain management, where you would hook up not only data from your own company, but from the whole production and supply and also consumption chain. And that means that it's all about linking information, about hooking up databases, etc. But when I look at history or book history in particular, the landscape looks like this. And landscape, yeah, that's a pun because this country is called the Maldives, and it's a collection of about 1,200 coral islands somewhere in the Indian Ocean. Information is completely scattered, so we're very far away from this digitalization. And that is called a major challenge. Now, how do you eat such an elephant? And the answer is, well, in little pieces, one at a time. And that's where 2 tracks of my life basically came together. First of all, everything that goes wrong, I blame it on my father, because my father collected collections. He had collections of everything. This is a page of his stamp collection. But collectors are interested in what they have, but especially in what they don't have. And in order to figure out what they don't have, they need catalogs. And my father's stamp Bible was the Hiver and Tellier, an annual the catalog of all available stamps, in this case, France, but they had it for every country in the world. Now, I've had something not with stamps, but with books. This is another picture of the library I'm currently sitting in, and where you see the background of. I collect books, not only on marketing and that kind of stuff, but on the left-hand side of the picture, you see part of my Antwerp book collection. Because I'm living near Amsterdam, but originally I'm from the very beautiful city of Antwerp. And I took it upon myself to collect 1 copy of a book by every printer or publisher in the city of Antwerp. And of course, in Antwerp, we've had a long tradition of printing, the printing industry. This is a view of the Plantijn Moretus Museum, which is still in its original 16th, 17th century state, basically the first printing factory in the world. We have some of the most beautiful libraries in the world. We have a society for bibliophiles, of which I'm the vice president. We publish a magazine, a journal on book history. And that's, of course, an environment where I could ask people, yes, where's the Hiver and Tellier? Where's the list of all the printers and publishers that have ever worked in Antwerp? And the answer was, well, we don't have one. The only thing we have is online catalogs of libraries where you have all the books and you have some information on the authors, the publishers, and the printers. And of course, you have the libraries. This is the search function of the Belgian National Library. We have specialized catalogs. This is the short title catalog Flanders of most of the books up to the 19th century printed in in Flanders, but it's all about books, books, books. And my question was, yes, but I want to have a lot more information about these persons. Not only what they printed, but also where they lived, the guilds they were member of, connections between them, etc., etc. And the answer was, well, we don't have that. It's all in separate books. Some of them old manuscripts, some more recent books. So what I was looking for was kind of a siphon to put all this information together. And some efforts exist, like Wikidata, but that's not curated, so the information is not reliable. You have places where catalogs of libraries have been brought together, like Searle, but there you find very weird names of printers that aren't real, but they've been invented by librarians. Another one is WorldCat. For instance, it says this book is printed by Verdussen, but there were 23 Verdussens. And you see in the notes about which association of 2 brothers it was printed. So that's all completely useless. And what people do is, there's a lot of fake Confucius quotes on the internet, but when people don't have a standard, they say, well, we create our own. which of course is a self-annihilating statement. So the problem is not only that the information is scattered all over the world and on the internet, but there's no common demeanors. There's no unique, the famous URIs, the unique references. So that's a challenge. And when you try and put everything together, you invariably come across the good old Guido principle, garbage in, garbage out. You can't just put everything together as it is. You need to curate it. And by the way, I mentioned Guido to someone years ago, garbage in, garbage out, and he says that's not true. Garbage in and garbage stays in, and it bears triplets. And that's, of course, in a graph context, even more explanatory. So I started behaving like Bob the Builder, and I started building my own database. And that's where the second track comes in. I've had a long career in creating databases. The first one in 1980, before we had PCs. So it was on little metal plates. Then I built a database later on in DBase 2, 3, and 4 for the historians that still remember that. Then I helped create a plugin on customer relationship management, and then another extension to MS Outlook. And then, of course, in 2022, you can all guess what was happening. So I said, yeah, well, I'll create my own database. Kind of at the beginning of this hockey stick thing, trying to bring all these little islands together, as they did in the Maldives. The islands were too small for an airfield, so they just joined 6 islands, and now they have an airfield. So I came up with a master plan. What can I do about this? And that master plan has a number of stages. Inevitably, there had to be a phase of manual data entry. I'll come back to that in a minute. Importation of some databases, maybe exchange, but then the real work could happen with linked open data linking and hopefully in the end, artificial intelligence to create a superconnector. And I'll come back to that term in a minute. Now, about this manual data entry, yeah, there was no way around it. I had to go by that phase. So I kind of quickly created a relational database in OpenOffice. And I started putting in all the information I could find about all these printers, including what you see here, all these gray fields. Bron, that's source. Also the source where I found this information. Otherwise, it's scientifically irrelevant because nobody can check it. And after 3,700 and something people I put into the database, it completely collapsed, of course, because it couldn't carry its own weight. So I also found out that it's virtually impossible or, very laborious to import databases into OpenOffice. So I started looking for another solution. And of course, somewhere in the back of my head was the story of the Panama Papers. And I started looking into this weird form of databases with these colored balls and these lines in between. And I discovered a magnificent world that could, instead of focusing on just separate data as nouns, could focus on the verbs, on the relationships. And as a linguist, I know misery is in the verbs, because separate things people can agree on, and it's easy to collect them all in one basket, but connecting them, that's really the very hard work. So what I needed was something that could picture all these relationships and also visualize all the sources. So I started making an inventory of all the kinds of information I could come up with about all these printers. So different writings of their names, their professional activities, career events, but also employment, where were they working, life events, birth, death, family relationships, where they lived, and so on and so forth. So I came up with these categories, and I built a schema, which is kind of a weird diamond-shaped schema, which, because Antwerp is the capital, world capital of diamond, is not very surprising. But still, anyway, You see two very important nodes. The green, that's the producers, all the different people, and a limited number of sources at the red arrow. And in between, you see all these categories you saw on the previous sheet, some of them with more detailed components, like, for instance, when you look at the bottom right, address. It could be a house, can be a city, could be a street, etc., etc. So that was the design. And what I was basically building without knowing it was a superconnector. And a superconnector is a phenomenon known in social media studies. It is kind of like a hub, but it's different. A hub is like Google. It's a place where lots of information is brought together. A superconnector does the same, but it adds its own information. So you could say that WorldCat and Searle, the two examples I showed you before, could be an object ontology because it contains or it tries to contain records on all the books in the world. At the bottom, geo-ontology, you could say, for instance, Google Maps, which has information on coordinates and other information on all addresses and points, geo-points in the world. But what we don't have or didn't have is a producer ontology, so about the people, but also about their professions. There was not an ontology of the different professions in the printing industry. So I was looking for a platform to do that, knowing in the back of my head that all the book historians are focusing on books. I'm not going to say that they're digitally illiterate, but digital literateness, is that a word, is not very, very widespread in the community. So I was looking for a user interface that was easy, but also, since this is a private project, one that would cost nothing or very little. And after some research, I discovered Neo4j. One of the reasons I chose for Neo4j is that it was low threshold, but it also has extremely kind people who are very helpful. They even granted me the startup version of Enterprise, so at least for the first year, I don't have to pay for my subscription. Thank you very much. An incredibly helpful community. And of course, there's this application called NeoDash, which helps you build dashboards. Also an incredibly helpful team led by Niels de Jong. They're working their asses off to meet all my expectations because I'm kind of a very particular user. It is a standalone application at the moment, but hopefully in the near future it will be integrated into Workspace. Hopefully not as a part of Bloom, but okay, that's another story. But anyway, the nice thing about NeoDash is that you have to, of course, you can't do without Cypher, but you can do with a limited knowledge of Cypher because the whole context has been prepared for you. The whole system can build different elements on different pages. They're called tabs and reports. And with a limited code like the one you see, you can show the different name variants of a person with the sources they can be found in. All these reports, you can choose from a long list of different forms. I'm using a limited number of them, but it makes it very easy. You can, you don't have to worry about the general picture. You can focus on the individual results that you want to show. Now, much to my surprise, I counted them yesterday as a preparation for this presentation. I created 203 of these reports on 16 different tabs, which makes me a kind of an unusual user. I must admit that 50 of these reports are marked down to explain or search fields or just single value fields, but I still have 150 different reports. And it looks like this, and this is a tricky moment where I'm going to try and switch to the actual live demo. And as far as I can see, yes, there we go. So it all starts with a very flexible search function where in a pull down, all the names in the database will appear. And I'm just going to pick one person who is my favorite because he's very complicated, but I also have a lot of data on it. And here you see the categories you saw before. They're going to be clickable buttons that take you directly to the information concerned, but that's something the team is still working on. But you see, for instance, all these different categories of information that I have data on. And they're all located on different tabs. So, for instance, Mr. Verdussen, he's a 16th century person. Of course, when you do demos online, the whole system becomes slower than in reality. Well, let me show you this first, where you have all the alternative ways of writing the name with the different sources. And of course, you can also represent that as a graph. If the system isn't too slow, yes, there we go. Yeah, there we go. So you can also present that as a graph. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. And some of the information comes from people, so there's also a possibility to indicate that. What was he working as? Well, professional activity will show you that Mr. Verdussen was a publisher, a bookseller, and also a printer. And the same goes here. You show all the different sources where that information comes from, and so on and so forth. Now, an interesting thing to show is also where did this person live, the addresses. And there I've mapped all the different addresses as far as they are known of all the printers on the geographical map, which is also loading pretty slowly. So here you have a list of all these addresses, and you can just click on one of them and you will get all the details in a while. Yeah, here you see, for instance, the 3 addresses this guy was working on. You get all the information about this particular address. And the nice thing is that, well, I had to load all the houses and the streets in the city of Antwerp, which was by itself. Yeah, and the tab stuff is something that they're also still working on. I'm just using too many tabs. There we go. Now let's go to the gazetteer first. Okay, this is the information on the different houses. So the Flemish government has a database of houses. So I imported 132 houses in the city of Antwerp, and of every house you can find the exact location on the map, but also the different printers that have been working as far as the data are present, of course, in the database. Some of the houses also have house signs, like in the Red Lion. Here you can see all the printers that have been working in a house called the Red Lion. And then we had a French occupation for 15 years in the late 18th, early 19th century. And the French people numbered all the houses, but regardless of the streets. So they split the city up into sectors. So every house has a sector number and a house number. This information was only available in spreadsheet format. I had somebody type in all this information. Sorry, it was only in PDF. I had somebody type it into a spreadsheet, and now it's available here, so you can figure out that this particular house has this present address, etc. Now, the same I have with the streets, not only the houses, but also the streets. I created an ontology of the professions, because that didn't exist. I've asked experts all over the world, is there a list with all print-related professions? No, there isn't. So it's a work in progress. So at this moment, there are 76 different trades in the database, 28 company types, and 192 variants. And if you look at the Dutch, this is the English variant, you see a nice graph appearing with all the different professions in the trade. And of course, you can find for any of these terms in any language, you can find the different people, the different translations, the different name or spelling variants, and also the different people that worked as in this profession. So you can fool around, play around as much as you like. A nice thing is that you can also make fun things like, and this is going to load pretty slowly, I produced a map with all the houses known for Antwerp printers. And I'm trying to get the detail here. So where you see that some houses are very popular, this is the old center of Antwerp. Some of them are very popular. And when you see here, for instance, that's, I'll click the wrong one, number has had 38 printers or associations related to it. You can click all of them and see all the details. So you can fool around as much as you like. Going back to the presentation and skipping a few slides because I had a plan B in case the live demo wouldn't work. So back to the slide presentation. What are the next steps? Well, we're not nearly there. It's now a question of rolling out the next phases of the whole project. First of all, at the end of December, beginning of January, this website will go live with the whole dashboard on it, or actually 3 dashboards, one on the printers, one on the professions ontology, and one on the addresses. Should you be interested, this is my email address. You can send me an email and I'll grant you access when it's live. Next step, oops, that was a little bit too fast. Next step, data exchange will be, for the time being, a temporary solution. But the next phase will be linked open data linking. I'm talking to a number of libraries and instances to look at the possibilities. But of course, finding the URIs is going to be a big hassle. In the meantime, because of this difference in different standards. And of course, I hope that I'll be able very soon to stop the manual data entry and replace it by artificial intelligence, which is kind of tricky at the moment. I asked my research assistants, which is the birth date of Balthasar I Moretus, and he said September 29, 1574. I said, okay, can you tell me where you found it? And he said, nope, I'm not going to do that. You'll have to figure that out for yourself. So it's not really up to a usable point, but there is hope. A number of elements are already present. You see in the top left corner the manuscript. There is a fantastic application called Transcribus where you can train the system to read manuscripts like that and to produce hypertext. Then I'm looking for an app that'll grind all this information into the right fields to put it into the knowledge graph. And I think just within the boundaries of time, that was my story. I don't know if there are any questions. We still have 1 or 2 minutes for that. But thank you very much for listening to part of the story of my life. If there aren't any questions, you can also put in the chat, you're an idiot, we don't like it, whatever. All feedback is welcome. I don't know whether you're still in the session. I have two questions. How do you deal with historical addresses that are not existent anymore? I try and link them to the present location, so which is sometimes another building, sometimes it's in the middle of the road, whatever. And somebody asked if it is a one-person achievement. How can you ensure that this information will remain available? Once it is live, I will be talking to a number of institutions that are interested in adopting it. But that's one of the future stages. I hope I've answered your questions.